You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. This is season 2, episode 71, the Cubs-Diamondback disaster. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, Fly the W on Facebook, or email us, flythew670@gmail.com. Now, Crawly, usually I'd be polite and ask you how you are. I'll just cut to the chase. I know you're not doing well, and most of Chicago is not doing well because this was about as bad of a Chicago sports weekend as I can remember.
It was pretty awful. I mean, I remember when we were on the last podcast, everything looked right, but I just felt like I hate when they Cubs play in Arizona. I just hate it. I don't know what it is about that stadium. It just, to me, is like a personal house of horrors, and that's exactly what unfolded.
That's exactly what unfolded. And Friday night, Justin Steele, that was kind of the stopper. The Cubs hadn't been playing fantastic, but Justin Steele looking to cement his place in Cubs lore and possibly a Cy Young, and it just did not go his way game 1 Friday night.
No, we talked about the pitching matchups in this series. The Cubs were going to miss Arizona's 2 best starters. The Cubs were going to throw out their 3 best starters. And then we get the big news before the game. Marcus Stroman comes off
available,
the IL.
right? Available, Marcus Stroman.
Unbelievable. So it's Justin Steele versus Brandon Pfaadt, potential Cy Young Award winner versus a guy with a 1-8 record and an ERA near 6. Right? Easy game. You and I both have this.
Yep,
firmly in the Cubs column.
Fly the W at 6 o'clock on Friday. I was already ready to, let it be said,
right.
Let it be done.
It just didn't turn out that way, man. In the bottom of the first, Kettle Marte led off with a single. He advanced on a bunt by Corbin Carroll and then made it to third on a Tommy Pham ground out. But then, you got 2 outs, runner at third. Steele throws a 4-pitch walk, and then Lourdes Gurriel, who had himself one hell of a series, hits a home run. And that was just
like that.
Right. Just like that.
The Cubs are down 3-0 in the first.
Right. And so this is your guy. And the offense was struggling. You could say, okay, well, at least you got Justin Steele going and he'll keep you in it. But now you're down 3-0. He settles down, right? And okay, well, if Steele could hold him, the offense could chip away and come back. But the offense did nothing against Pfaadt. He pitched 5.1 innings. He gave up 4 hits, 1 walk with 6 strikeouts. The Cubs didn't have an extra base hit, nor did they have a runner even reach scoring position in the 5.1 innings that he was on the mound. To make matters worse, in the top of the 6th, Steele walked Christian Walker to lead off the inning, struck out the next 2 batters he faced, and then with 2 outs, Gabriel Moreno single, and then Alec Thomas homered, the second 2-out, 3-run homer of the game against Steele. He went 6 innings. He gave up 7 hits, 6 runs, 2 walks, and 5 Ks. I'm hoping, Dustin, this doesn't end his Cy Young hopes, but obviously it's not going to help it.
I think he might have left it out there. Obviously, we'll see what happens as we preview the upcoming series against the Pirates. But that took a big chunk out of him. If you still like his chances, you may want to invest a little bit of your Fly the W money on him to win the Cy Young, because I bet his odds went back against him. The other thing was, Hottovy went out there, right? Hottovy goes and pays a visit. And the very next pitch, not like during the very next batter, the very next pitch, boom, goes the dynamite. So you just wonder what was said. Steele admitted that he just left it hanging, right? And he said, good hitters do what they're supposed to do when a pitcher makes a mistake like I made.
Right. I mean, and Tommy's mound visits kind of jokingly on Twitter, they're legendary. Usually good things happen, and not that case.
Yeah, they're growing in legend, right? Mm-hmm.
Marcus Stroman came in out of the bullpen and made his first relief appearance since his rookie season in 2014. He pitched 2 innings, gave up 1 hit, 1 walk, and 3 Ks.
Look good. I wondered if he got another tattoo since he'd been on the IL.
Maybe, but the Cubs did not have a hit against the next 3 bullpen arms that followed Pfaadt. It wasn't until the 9th inning when Kevin Nelson came in that the Cubs finally got on the board. Ian Happ led the inning off with a homer. Cody Bellinger singled. Swanson struck out, and then Seiya homered to make it 6-3. Arizona then had to go to their closer, Paul Sewald, and that's a game you're up 6-0. You're not anticipating to have your closer in. Chris Morel greets him with a homer. Now the Cubs down 6-4, but Yan Gomes would line out and Magical would pop out. The game was over. If you saw just the score, you would think, close game,
right?
But it really wasn't.
No, it was really like they lost 6-0. It really felt like a 6-0 loss. How about the teammate, though? So Ian Happ, let's go back to the Ian Happ home run for a second. Hits the home run. He quickly runs over to Seiya in the dugout, and the interpreter's running right there with him, and he explained what was going on with the pitcher, what he saw coming out of the pitcher's hand, and then boom, it worked. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't know if you caught that or not, but that was really cool.
It definitely was something interesting, and obviously he was, whatever he said worked, and so just wish that they would have caught something earlier on some of the other guys. The offense only scored 4 runs on 7 hits, but all their runs and half their hits came in the ninth. So like I said, it was just kind of garbage time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it didn't feel like a 6-4 nail biter. Oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda. It felt like an absolute ass kicking from start to finish. All right, so we get to game number 2. It's Saturday night. We're still out in the desert, and we got Kyle Hendricks against old Cubby Zach Davies.
Right. And sometimes, Dustin, when you see a team that does put on some runs in the ninth, you think, okay,
carryover, right? Here we go.
A little carryover. We've got
I thought the same thing. That makes sense. Yep. I thought that too. Yep.
Not only that, David Ross shook up the lineup and had Ian Happ leading off, which where has that been all season? I mean, I think that was, to me, the right move, just especially, when you think about how much he walks and how much he has not slugged, why wouldn't you kind of put him there? And I wasn't that happy, though, about Christopher Morel batting third. The other thing I wasn't happy about, we talked about this in the last episode, how Pete Crow Armstrong, he was the number 1 web gem for Sunday Night Baseball, that catch in Colorado. Another very big outfield in there. And I thought, he would get maybe at least 1 start, but no, not going to happen. And with no score in the 4th inning and 1 out, Tommy Pham hit one to right center. It bounced off the wall, but Talkman, who was playing center, he misses the cutoff man, and Pham's able to reach third base. You can't do that on that right there.
No.
Christian Walker then hit a ground rule double to left center. I think PCA makes the play, but now the Cubs are down 1-0. Hendricks got Alex Thomas to pop out to second, but then Lourdes Gurriel hit one to center that scores Walker. Cubs are down 2-0. So when you think about that inning, I thought that there was 2 plays that Gurriel hit and the other one that I thought that PCA would have gotten, and you also had the missed cutoff man. But, you're down 2-0 to Zach Davies. The Cubs did fight back in the 5th. Jan goes doubled, Magical singled, and Happ walked. So the Cubs loaded the bases, no outs, and Zach Davies' night was over. And in came Luis Frias. He walked Nico with the bases loaded. The Cubs are down 2-1, no outs, but we saw this a couple times this weekend. Chris Morel hits into a double play with the bases loaded, no outs. A run would score to tie the game, but now the Cubs had 2 outs. Luckily, Cody Bellinger was up next. He singles, and the Cubs pull ahead 3-2. You knew that, Dustin, we talked about that lead's not going to hold. In the bottom of the 6th, Arizona got 3 straight singles off of Hendricks. His night was over. He went 5.1 innings, gave up 3 runs on 7 hits, 3 Ks, 1 walk. It was a typical Hendricks start. And now you have both teams in their pen, and neither team would score until the game got into extras. And that's when things got really crazy. In the top of the 10th, and Nico on second, Morel would reach on an infield single. With Cody Bellinger up, Nico and Morel execute a double steal. The throw gets past the third baseman, and the Cubs take a 4-3 lead. Now, Cody was then hit by a pitch, but the ball hits the knob of the bat. Cody drops it, and his hands hurt, and the ball goes straight to the pitcher, and he's called out. The Cubs challenged the out. They say Bellinger was hit by pitch. They reviewed it, and they said, nope, no good. And you could see how mad Bellinger was because he's pointing at his hand, and
Right.
Ross had to come out to make sure he's not tossed. But, I mean, what are the odds, Dustin? And this is the snake bit in the desert type thing.
A lot of bad breaks in this series. A lot of things did not go your way. That doesn't excuse the lack of hitting, but there were a lot of bounces that did not go the Cubs' way.
Like, how often have you seen a ball literally hit off the knob of the bat and go straight to the pitcher? I mean,
Right.
So Dansby, then hits one to the pitcher. Morel's caught off the base because it's on a contact play. And so luckily, Morel was smart enough to get into a rundown to allow Swanson to get to second. The D-backs walked Suzuki to face PCA, who walked to load the bases, but Yan Gomes ground out, and the Cubs were only able to get 1 run when they had runners at second and third and no outs. that would come on to haunt them. Marcus Stroman, they decided to roll him out for a second game in a row after
I
pitching.
didn't understand that either. I know you're going to maybe need him as we're going to keep going through this, but like he's your new closer. That's what that said to me. That said, we need to win this game. We're leading by a run. They're up, right? They're leading. Save opportunity. And they bring in Marcus Stroman when he just got back on back-to-back nights.
Yeah, that was one of many head-scratching decisions.
Huh? I mean, that one, you got to explain that one to me.
I can't, and I can't even worse when we get to Sunday when we talk about that. But Perdomo's going to start the inning at second. The first batter he faced, Corbin Carroll, he's going to single, and the game's tied at 4. Stroman gets the next 3 batters out, and the game moves to the 11th. Yan Gomes starts the inning at second with 1 out. Ian Happ would single and put runners at the corners. Nico would single, and the Cubs retook the lead 5-4. Unfortunately, Morel grounded out and Bellinger grounded out, and the Cubs once again could not get any insurance runs. David Ross decided to pull Stroman from the game and went with Drew Smiley to try and close this out. And that's the thing, Dustin, that I didn't get. It is like, okay, like if you got Stroman in and all of a sudden, he gives up that leadoff single, but, then all of a sudden he's cruising. I don't know if
it's he knows how to get up and down, obviously, as a starting pitcher, right? He knows how to come in at the end of an inning, take a breather, get back up and go back out there. I mean, if you went to him, you should have stayed with him, I think.
Agreed.
I don't think he should have been out there in the first place. I think maybe Drew Smiley should have been the first option. But then since you went to him, I don't understand why you went away from him.
Exactly.
But I'm sure there's a lefty-righty thing and a book and a metric and blah, blah, blah.
No idea. But pinch running Jake McCarthy started on second. Alec Thomas hit a sac bunt to move the runner to third. And then the game was tied on a Lourdes Gurriel single. Smiley got Emmanuel Rivera to ground into a double play. So the game moves on.
That Gurriel name is being said quite a bit so far in this.
It never stops in this series. Into the 12th, Bellinger started at second. Dansby Swanson struck out swinging. Seiya was intentionally walked, and with runners at first and second and PCA up, Ross decided to pinch hit for PCA with Miguel Amaya. He grounds into a force out, and Yan Gomes flied out. The inning's over. Ross decides to leave Smiley in the 12th. He walks the first batter he faces, but Gerardo Perdomo bunted, and Yan Gomes caught it in foul territory for the first out. Corbin Carroll singled to load the bases, but Marte struck out and Pham grounded out. So the game moves into the 13th. Like I said, just don't bunt. With Gomes starting on second, Wisdom singled to put runners at the corners, but Ian Happ grounded into a double play. Gomes scored. Cubs lead 6-5. But again, Dustin, an opportunity to add on more runs, and they couldn't do it. You get to the bottom of the 13th. Tommy Pham on second. Smiley still on the mound. Jake McCarthy out on a sac bunt, but Pham gets to third. Hayden Wesniewski comes in to pitch for the Cubs. He walks the first batter he faced, Evan Longoria, who has to be collecting Social Security at this point.
You would think.
Then Jordan Lawler pops out for the second out. And in a play, Dustin, that will join many other in Cubs infamy, I'm thinking about the Don Young drop fly balls in New York in 1969, the Leon Durham Gatorade glove in 84, the Alex Gonzalez error in the 8th in 2003. This is going to be one that's going to stay in a lot of Cub fans' heads. Emmanuel Rivera, with 2 outs, hits a ball that hit off the body of Hayden Wesniewski, and it caromed towards Dansby Swanson. And I don't know if he didn't see it. I didn't know if there was English on it, but it lands right in front of him. If he catches it, then the game's over. Cubs win. Instead, everyone's safe, and the Cubs tied. What do you think happened there?
I have no idea. I would love to know. It was late, right? It's late at home. That was like the longest game of the year, and I don't know if he was asked about it afterwards. I saw nothing about it. No idea.
I mean, it just was a bizarre, like it was right there. It looked like I said, unless he lost it in the lights, maybe he didn't just the way that it caromed off Wisniewski's body. I don't know, but the next batter, Gabriel Moreno, singles to right. Seiya throws it home, but the throw was slightly towards the first base side. And Longoria, we talked about good slides. He barely got in there, and he made a good slide, and he just beat the tag, and the Diamondbacks would win the game. Now, the Cubs had leads in the 5th, 10th, 11th, and 13th innings and could not win the game. And, yeah, it's easy to blame the pen, but with the runner on second rule, you need to score more than 1 run to win the game. It's not that difficult to get 1 run. and just the offense failed them again. The team was 6 for 19 with runners in scoring position, but 3 of those runs came in extra inning when they were given a free runner at second.
Yeah.
They left a whopping 16 men on base, and the heart of the order killed the Cubs. Morrell went 2 for 7, Bellinger went 1 for 5, and Swanson went 0 for 6.
Can I ask another question? Where's Julian Merriweather?
I don't know.
Is he so is he the next guy that's suffering from, right forearm tightness and is going to be headed to the eye? I mean, where's Merriweather?
I mean, he didn't pitch Friday, and that's the thing that blew my mind is that, like, you had the day off Thursday. Nobody, they only used 2 pitchers on Friday in Steele and Stroman. And so everyone should have been on deck on that one.
Why was it? And Merriweather should have been the first guy up on Saturday night, in my opinion, unless something's going on.
Well, what about Brad Boxberger as well?
Sure.
I mean,
sure. But I'm just saying, if you're talking about a closer, right?
Right.
Merriweather he's got closer type stuff. He's been in high leverage situations. Really? Somebody's got to explain that to me. You'd rather go to Marcus Stroman than go to Julian Merriweather, who doesn't even end up being in the game on Saturday.
And then Drew Smiley.
Right.
You had another opportunity to win it when they came back and you decided Smiley was the guy that you were sticking with. So I have no clue.
Yeah, very, very disappointing. So that moves us into Sunday, and I hate Sunday night baseball. I don't know what I dislike more, Sunday night baseball or Sunday night football. But in this case, I dislike Sunday night baseball more because of what would happen with Jordan Wicks on Sunday night.
Yeah, Sunday night baseball, not only that, you're playing in Arizona, which I hate, so I doubly hated all of this.
The broadcast is so bad. The announcers are just awful.
Yeah, if you should be listening to Pat and Ron in general, but especially on a Sunday night baseball call. Those just awful. But
horrific.
I thought the first inning was a good representation of the entire series. Ian Happ started the game off with a leadoff double, but the Cubs left him stranded at third. And then in the Arizona bottom of the first, Wicks walks the first batter he faces. Carroll singles. Pham reaches on a fielder's choice. Christian Walker hit a ball that just got over Nico's glove, but Tauchman picked it up and threw out Carroll at third. But Marte scores. The Cubs were down 1-0. Lourdes Gurriel doubled to score Pham. They're down 2-0. And Emmanuel Rivera hit a sac fly, and the Cubs were down 3-0. So that was just, like I said, just a good representation of the entire series. Cubs have runners on. They can't do anything. Arizona gets runners on, and then they push them all in. I mean, that's just what it was. And, Dansby started a double to start the second and scored on a Mike Tauchman single to make it 3-1. The third inning to me was the dagger. Ian Happ singled, Horner walked, and then Morrell walked to load the bases with no outs and Cody Bellinger up. He grounds into a double play. A run scores to make it 3-2, but then Swanson flies out to end the threat. But I mean, you just couldn't get the big inning. Bases loaded, no outs, and you get only a run. I mean, come on. No
time. Absolutely zero timely hitting.
Nope. And then Wicks didn't pitch bad, but he was only able to go 4.1 innings, gave up 3 runs on 4 hits, 5 Ks, 4 walks. But it was his worst start since we've seen him in the 4 starts he's had. Jose Cuas came into relief. Wicks, he gets the out in the 5th, but in the 6th inning, he gave out a 1-out single and then Kettle Marte homer to make it 5-2. And the way the Cubs were playing,
you knew at that point
it
was 10-2. Yeah, exactly. Great point. It felt like it was 10-2.
Right. Arizona used a ton of pitchers on Saturday nights. And when they pulled Ryan Nelson in the 4th, you're like, okay, there's
and their bullpen is no great shakes in general. Like, that's the Achilles of this team, supposedly, the bullpen.
Right. And so you're thinking, yes, we knocked out Ryan Nelson. Let's go ahead and get there. But, just couldn't do anything. Frias, Castro, Thomas, and Jarvis pitched 5.2 innings, Dustin. They only gave up 5 hits and no walks. The Cubs offense scored 2 runs on 7 hits, 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. And they left 6 on base. They would lose this one 6-2. They would get swept by the Diamondbacks, losing 6 of 7, all in a week span. And David Ross was asked after the game, hey, what happened?
We weren't very good. Yeah, they were better than we were. All aspects of the game. They played better defense. They pitched better. They had time they were hitting. They ran the bases better. They just got beat all the way around. Bad road trip. Try to watch it with the off day tomorrow and get back at it.
So that was it. They hit better than you. They pitched better than you. They ran the bases better than you. They did everything I'm just trying to figure out here, Dustin. They talked about it on the broadcast about how they had Dustin Pedroia come into the locker room to talk to those guys. What is Ross? I don't know what they're doing. All I can tell you is after the Cubs swept the Giants in the beginning of September, they were up 4 games in the second wild card spot before Arizona came to Wrigley. Then they lost 3 out of 4 to the Snakes. They went on this road trip going 1-3 against Colorado, or 1-2 against Colorado, 0-3 in Arizona without having to face their 2 best pitchers. And now they find themselves out of a wild card spot all in a span of 10 games, Dustin.
Yeah,
I mean
this
just
is
like that.
These were playoff. This is playoff baseball. And the last time they got into the playoffs under David Ross, they looked exactly like they looked over this little span.
Yeah, the Cubs have had plenty of September swoons in the past, 69, 2001, 2004, 2018, 2019, just to name a few. And if this team doesn't turn it around quickly, if they don't turn it around quickly, this team will join that list.
But would you agree with this, Crawly? Would you agree with this? Do you want to play glass half full and say, at the end of May, if I had made you a bet that the Cubs were going to be playing baseball games that mattered with 2 weeks left to go in the regular season, and I mean mattered like because they could make the postseason, not like they mattered because we love the Cubs, what would you have said?
I'd be absolutely thrilled with it. And again, no matter what happens, however this season plays out with it, I've had, if you remember last season, Dustin, when we were doing this show, it was, well, every prediction was, let's try not to get swept.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Yeah, please don't get swept. Like hashtag don't get swept. Yeah.
It was not that much fun to kind of sit around through all of that. This has been a blast. But let me just put it this way, is that, expectations change. And when they played and we saw what they were capable of, your expectations shifted, I think. And so, to get this close and fall apart so close to the end, and it's not over, but I'm just concerned, Dustin, because they had an off day after facing Colorado. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, maybe, get a little rest. That was a long stretch. But they still look tired and listless to me. I don't know what you saw there, but
they look like they're out of gas. Bellinger looks like he's totally spent. Dansby Swanson looks like he could use a day off, and you know how stubborn he is. He's not going to take one. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, hopefully this day of rest works out great, and they get after tomorrow night. I mean, we're going to preview that series in a second, but they need to sweep the Pirates.
Yeah, you're at the point right now where the schedule doesn't favor you anymore. You don't control your own fate. You need help. But there's no more time for, the David Ross flush this one, flush that one. There's no more games you can afford to flush. And so they better come prepared for Wrigley. They better come ready to play. Otherwise, it's just going to be a real tough, bitter pill to swallow. Join me now on the Fly the W podcast. You have a play-by-play announcer for your Tennessee Smokies, Mick Gillispie. Mick, how you doing, buddy?
What do you say, Crawly? Great to be here with you, and love the studio.
Hey, man, it's the Cubs cave. It's getting there. The old Cubs clubhouse. We're working on it, but the reason I wanted to have you on is that for the second season in a row, the Tennessee Smokies are in the postseason, and obviously everyone's got to be excited down there. Could you tell me what some of the differences are between that 2022 and 2023 Smokies team?
Well, we're really excited. Obviously, the team hasn't won a championship since they've been a Cubs affiliate since 2007. And as a matter of fact, you got to go all the way back to 1978 since the Smokies were the champions alone of the Southern League. So fingers are crossed. All you got to do is win 4 games, right? It sounds so easy, but it's tough to do. Last year, the Smokies lost in the championship game. They lost. They got to the final and then won the first game, lost the second game, and then got blown out in the third game. But it's a different type of team. It's almost pretty much an entirely new roster. We had Hollywood Pete Crow Armstrong for most of the season, and he was just such an electric player, a ball of energy. Really, really love what he does every day. And I think eventually he's going to get comfortable. He's going to get something going with the Cubs in the big leagues, and all of you guys are going to see that hopefully sooner than later. But when he was with the Smokies, I mean, just great outfield defense and a tone setter at the top of the lineup who it's almost like I told Doug DeCenzo, he's got like X-ray vision, like he could just pitch in the dirt and he's gone,
Yeah.
And so he was great. A lot of power. He had a 16 pitch at bat and hit a home run. And I made like a short video of it on the Cubs baseball channel, my podcast. because I was like, man, I've never seen this before. I even told him, I'm like, I don't know that I'll ever see that again. 16 pitches, and the 16th he hit a grand slam, right? So we had him, Owen Casey, who is the Cubs' number 3 prospect in a really talented system, right? He's the right fielder. He's in the top 5 or 10 in every offensive category: power, strong arm. He's a 5-tool, maybe not as much speed, but he's not slow. So maybe 4 of the 5 tools, but a potential star player down the road. When he's ready, he's got to make a little more contact. I think the strikeouts, I would want the strikeouts to kind of diminish, but I'm not. That's not how they play the game anymore. Like, you're allowed to strike out. I just think when he makes contact, good things happen, right? So more contact means more hits, means more home runs. But he still has had a tremendous year. Plays great defense too. Smart guy. He was only 20 years old in the Southern League, which is really young, and he was one of the best players. And then turned 21, and he still is. But he takes his defense very serious. He said, watching Pete Crow Armstrong kind of helped him develop that. Just because, you see Pete every day and you care, but then it's like, man, this guy's taking it to an entirely different level. So, those two were kind of the cornerstones of the team. BJ Murray has been inconsistent, but he's been good, like, great eye, probably needs to develop a little bit more pop, as a third baseman, a corner infielder moving forward, but good player. Another young guy that is a switch batter. He hit home runs from both sides of the plate in the same game, which is the second straight year that happened. Jonathan Perlaza did it last year. So I love switch hitters. So that's cool. Like that the Cubs have guys who are diverse like that. They can hit from both sides of the plate with power. Kind of like Chili Davis or Eddie Murray or, Mark Teixeira type guys. But as far as this team goes, the pitching it's been up and down with the pitching. They had DJ Hers, and then he was traded in the Jamer Candelario trade, and then now he was kind of inconsistent, and now all of a sudden he's like looks like a Cy Young Award winner in their organization, which is crazy. But the funny thing is, we had him and Wicks, and those two are so similar. You could tell like kind of what the Cubs look for in pitchers.
Right.
And I think Hers is going to get to the big leagues, and he's going to probably be good like Wicks has been. So we had both of those guys, very similar, kind of hide the ball, change up first pitchers, which I think really works in the big leagues. We had him, and at the beginning of the season had Ben Brown. And the way that it works in AA is you play the first half, and then you start over and play the second half. Well, the Smokies had the lead in the first half, and a couple weeks before the end of the half, they made a change with the manager, who Michael Ryan, who we all really loved, was kind of like I don't want to say he was definitely a real serious kind of baseball X and O's type manager, really well respected. And then he left, and then we got Kevin Graver, who's a really nice guy, and has spent a lot of time in amateur ball, and actually Jared Banner, from what I understand, played for him. Who's with the Cubs front office and runs the minor leagues, and so it was kind of one of those emergency situations. But Graver just has this really awesome positive energy. I think that's like his superpower. You can't be around him and have a bad day, like he's kind of like Joe Madden, in that aspect. So, we'll see. I mean, like he was I think he was like the field coordinator, and now he's the manager. How that's going to play out when you're in the postseason and you're pulling levers and all of that stuff, but it's only 4 games, and who knows? I mean, he was like a really good prep, high school head coach or whatever, like legendary. So, baseball is baseball. So we'll find out. So with that, trying to line up the pitching right now, the Cubs' number 2 prospect, Cade Horton, will start game 1 on Tuesday against Chattanooga. He's an excellent prospect. I mean, he's exciting. He's a front end starter, a really nasty slider, fastball that he can locate. they don't really let him pitch much. Like you'll see him for 4 innings, maybe 5, never 6. And so the thing that I'd like to know is what would he look like seeing a team the third time through the lineup? I think that would help him, but we're not going to see that. It's going to be 4 or 5 innings, but in the 4 or 5 innings that we've seen, his stuff's really good. And then there's a guy named Walker Powell who's going to pitch game 2. And this guy was like undrafted. The Cubs with the scout that found him called him on the phone and was like, here's $2,000 and a plane ticket. And all the guy's done is he's just taken advantage of that. Like he's gotten better and better. He's a lot like Javier Assad, where you're like, you because there's no money invested in him and, he's not, blowing you away with the analytics. Maybe you're kind of slow to appreciate the fact that, getting pitch to contact outs and getting strikeouts when you need them and, setting up hitters and throwing strikes, really, it still works. And so he's probably going to go game 2. Cole Franklin, who's been up and down, but has good stuff, would be probably game 3 against Chattanooga. And then I don't know what we would look like if we get to the championship series, which would start on Sunday. But pitching wise, it's been up and down. Blake Whitney is a guy that's been with the Smokies for a couple years. He's been really good in the bullpen. There's a reliever named Riley Martin. Love watching him. He's got like the long flow and some facial hair, and he's a left-hander, comes in and throws some pitches. Hunter Biggie, who's another reliever for the Smokies. The guy went to I believe it was Harvard, a Ivy League guy.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, he's really smart. Physics, and then he throws like 97, and when he's on, he's unhittable. So it all comes down to really these guys taking advantage of opportunities. Matt Shaw just came up, and Shaw was the Cubs' first-round pick from Maryland, shortstop, very good defender, great bat speed. I think the Cubs scouting did an excellent job picking this guy. That's where their bread and butter has been. The complaints have been, about developing pitching. And you could say, well, it's drafting or it's development or whatever, but you can't argue with the success that the Cubs have had picking up guys like Shaw. So I think they did a great job scouting. He's getting better and better every day. Really fun player to watch at shortstop. Kind of has that Nico Horner type leadership characteristic that you can just tell when you watch him play. And then because South Bend's not in it this year, a week ago you turn around and Kevin Alcantara is there and 3 other guys that are all prospects.
Moises Ballesteros. And
yeah.
It's, that's the thing that I think a lot about is that when you look at this roster up and down, now obviously PCA has moved up and a couple other guys, but this is a group that you saw win the first half in Myrtle Beach. A bunch of them win the championship in South Bend last year, and then they're here. So there's like a core group of guys that have kind of all gone along the same path. So when you think about the postseason, they're not going to be rattled by anything. There's nothing that, they faced elimination in South Bend, all that kind of stuff. They've been here before, so they know what it takes to win. And that's what's getting me excited about watching Tennessee in the postseason.
Yeah, I believe, and having spent half of my life in, minor league baseball, I believe winning is developing. And I know there's a debate, some people think that it's not. And some people like me, no, I don't think, I know that it is, because there's a winning mindset that you develop just as a player. That's not about stats. It's not about analytics. You moving a runner over in a spot, just getting them in position to score. Think about the 13-inning game that the Cubs played on Saturday against the Diamondbacks, and how many times they could have won, and then how things ended up going, right? And if you're in the minor leagues and you're playing a game like that, and you're saying, you know what, we're going to worry about who's going to get hurt instead of worrying about winning the game, then you're not going to have the experience of winning a battle like that. And look, that game, it's just one game, but it felt like 10 games. I mean, think about it. Mentally, it feels like 10 games. You when the Cubs in 2016 won all the games, right? They won those type of games. They won the blowout games. They won the close games, and they won the World Series. And then when you got into the World Series, having won all of those type of games helped them win the whole thing, right?
Right. When you're down 3-1 and they still didn't quit.
They didn't quit. No, I was at Game 5 and I'm going, crap, man, what are we going to do? I was there with Ben Ingram, the Braves broadcaster, and Wayne Randazzo, who's the Angels broadcaster. Pretty cool group of guys I hang with. And it's like just the vibe at Wrigley. I did not think that the Cubs were out of it. I just didn't. We went to breakfast before the game and we're talking and I'm like, no, I just knew it. I knew it because they had figured out a way to win a lot of those games. I think that the minor leagues are the same thing. You got to teach people, you got to teach players to expect to win. You want to have that high standard of winning. And when we talk to a lot of the players who won with South Bend in 2019, and then some of the guys that won last year, they say it's like their best moment in baseball, that winning that championship. So Cubs, if you're listening, let's get it in Tennessee, right? We haven't won one in forever. So let's make sure that we continue that winning and get a Smokies ring for the first time since 1978.
That would be phenomenal. So, you were talking a little bit there. Obviously, everyone's excited to see Cade Horton. And then you talked about Powell starting Game 2 and Cole Franklin, good friend of ours, and been on the pod in Game 3. What hitters should our listeners be kind of paying attention to in this postseason? Who are the guys that really kind of, as far as, maybe leadoff guys or guys with some pop that you should be kind of watching?
Well, I mean, I think everything starts at this point with Owen Casey. He is a player who has been with the Smokies all year long. He's going to be, batting second or third in your lineup, and you're expecting him to do some damage. I'd say it all starts really with him, but BJ Murray, the guys that have been there, and then Alcantara. I mean, that he's a power hitter and drove in a lot of runs. So I would think that those guys, but the thing about the playoffs is it always seems like it's someone unlikely that ends up being the one that made a difference in a series that was the difference between you winning and you losing, right? I
think if you're going to sit there and go that route, then my money's on Pablo Aliendo, because he seems to be a guy that everyone loves him. And he's the type of guy that, like you were talking about Doug DeCenzo earlier. I don't know if we were talking about it beforehand, but just one of those guys that just somehow is in the right place at the right time. And that he's a guy that I really love. And I'd love to see him be a difference maker for Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I don't know who it's going to be, but I just, I mean, look, how many years did we say just one before we die, right?
Right.
And I think it's like the Smokies are kind of the same thing. We got the best owner in minor league sports. His name's Randy Boyd, and he is the biggest Smokies fan. I mean, just the biggest. And we would just love the experience of him getting to have a championship ring. Like our championship ring. And I'm not taking anything away from the Cubs championship ring we got. That was awesome. And I mean, it's like a once in a lifetime thing. But, having a Smokies championship ring for us would be really special. So I'm hoping that it happens.
Oh yeah. And then, they always do the ring ceremony out in spring training. So that would, I hope if it does happen, I'd love to be able to catch it. Now, three guys that you talked about one, you talked about PCA, but two other guys that have started in Tennessee and now are in the majors, Miguel Amaya and Luke Little. Did you see anything when you saw these guys at the beginning of the season and you said to yourself, hey, these guys really have a chance to maybe make it to the bigs this season?
Amaya would have been there a long time ago. Remember, what was it, 2 years ago? And every single Cubs catcher kept getting hurt. And it ended up being like Tyler Payne got up there for a game, which would have been the most unlikely of guys, and some other guys too.
And Luke Little, he's
well, I think that Amaya would have been there, right? If had it not been for that, but he came back from surgery and right off the bat, he was hitting. And defensively, he's good. I've noticed that he's gotten a lot better in the big leagues. But I was surprised that he went up to the major leagues as fast as he did. But they really like him. I mean, look, he's up there, and they got rid of Tucker Barnhart, so they feel comfortable with what he's doing, and he's getting better. And I think working with Yan Gomes helps him a lot. So, his game was good. Luke Little's a really interesting guy. It's this big lefty that sometimes just has no clue where the ball is going. And then other days he is impossible to hit because it looks like he has no clue where it's going, but he does. So you're never comfortable in the box. It's like, and we saw there was one of the games against Colorado, I think it was, right, where he just was like all over the place and bouncing things. And there's a lot of moving parts with him. He's just got to work on just repeating his delivery and being more consistent with his command. But he is nasty. I mean, I'm talking about like it always looks like it's going to hit you and then comes in, and he's throws hard, and he's a big intimidating guy at 6'8". He looks like the type of guy that would just like pick your car up if you were in his way, So I did a video on him. Some of these guys, when they get called up to the big leagues, I'll just jump on and just do a quick show and be like, hey, here's what I think about this guy. And Luke Little was one of those. And I'm excited about what his future looks like. But the reason he's there is because the Cubs really don't have left-handed options, and they're just begging for some of my left-handed. Like if Brandon Hughes could get back, that would help them out a ton.
Now, the question, so you guys are going to start, like I said, the postseason is starting for you guys. And the thing I like about Tennessee is you guys always have great promotions. And so I know with the playoffs that it's where you want to get the crowd really into it. You know what I mean? Get those vibes going. What does Tennessee have up their sleeve for the playoffs?
We do the rally towels, which is fun. You get out there and you get a rally towel. And I don't know for the first game that it's like a big giveaway other than the towels, but we have fans who really support the team. And when we're in these type of games, it's really crazy how many people show up and are, like Wrigley South, and people are just out there and they're fired up. And they make a lot of noise and they stay on the umpires the entire game. It's been such a privilege to be their play-by-play guy. And it's not the major leagues, but if you and this is what I've tried to leave a few times and, for different stuff and the owner's like, hey, great guys, like, cause if you're not going to be in the majors, you might as well be here. And he's right, man. It starts with the fans, they're the best fans. Like they love the team and they know baseball. Being a Cubs fan forever, like we're the same way. Sit there and talk about all these different teams and what guys mean. And, you'll go down there and talk to them and they remember, players that were, 1978, for example, last time the Smokies won. Tony La Russa was the manager. Harold Baines was on the team, and a bunch of guys that played for the Sox in 83, and including most of their pitching rotation came through Tennessee. And people remember that. They'll talk about that, So the great fans, they'll be fired up. And I'm expecting that Tuesday night will be pretty ruckus Smoky Stadium.
Well, it's going to be especially ruckus because Tennessee is bringing back one of their best promotions that I one of these days, it's my dream to go and attend to the game.
Oh, yeah. Free beer night. Is it free beer night?
Free beer night. Okay.
Yeah,
for those of you listening
right.
that have not heard of this, all you got to do is purchase a Smokies 2023 Mason jar, and the beer is free until the opposing team scores.
Yeah.
It's one of the funniest promotions. Talk to us about that real quick because I love this thing.
Yeah, look, and it was like free beer night for me while watching college football Saturday. So I'm dealing with that right now. The next day after free beer night, drink a lot of fluids, right? But no, it's a great promotion. It is so much fun. Because you like you said, you get the Smokies Mason jar and then you just go fill it up until the other team scores. And some like this year, Walker Powell pitched and he gave up a run in like the fifth. and it's the loudest boo when a run scores. We had a year where the team scored. We were playing, I think, Montgomery, and they scored like the first batter singled right through the middle, stole second on the second pitch, and then a base hit, and we're down 1-0. And the place went nuts. They were so mad. And then the guy comes over to the PA, and he's like, "Free beer night. We'll go until the third inning," and everybody was happy after that.
I absolutely, but to do it during the postseason, like you want to talk about even amplifying an already jacked up atmosphere.
Oh yeah,
I'm absolutely loving it. So Mick, if people wanted to listen or watch these postseason games, where should our listeners go?
Look, it's gotten a lot easier. If you have the MLB app or the MLB where you watch the Cubs app, and I guess you guys probably in Chicago, people probably don't do it as much because of blackouts, right? But if you're not in that area, that's where I watch the Cubs every day. We're on there too, so you go down and it's like AA, and that's where we are. And unfortunately, right now, only the home games are our broadcast, which is one of the best in baseball. We just have a great team. And when we're on the road, you would have to go to like the MILB app, and you can listen to us on there. And then, what I would suggest is that you listen to us and turn the sound down when we're on the road, especially through these games. That let me tell you about broadcasting these, Crawly. It's when you're in the minor leagues, it's a totally different broadcast than when you're in the majors. And I did spring training for a long time, and that was a great time. And we would really focus on the game, and we'd talk a lot about the players and kind of introduce Cubs fans to the up and coming stars, and lay out what the situation was in spring training every day. And I miss doing those webcasts. They were fantastic. And then you go and you do the minor leagues, and people care about the team and they care about the games, but it's more entertainment. So You're on there every night, and you're talking about things that aren't necessarily baseball related, or maybe it's what great giveaway somebody has, and what sandwich someone made, and I always any kind of story with animals I'll talk about, and so people, they listen every night, and we're laughing, and we're having a good time, and we're telling about the players and their families and the backgrounds there. And then, if a crazy story happened, we're getting into that and we're laughing about it, because for us to maintain our audience, that not the hardcore baseball fan, but just the person that's the casual listener, being on like we're on, I guess, what the Scores equivalent would be in Tennessee, the sports animal. They're not going to listen if it's just straight up minor league baseball, because they don't really know the players, right?
Right.
So the whole season's like that. You're kind of balancing like what's going on with the team with entertaining. Well, that all ends when you get into the playoffs. And that's what makes these broadcasts so much more fun, is it is straight baseball, like it would be if you were in the major leagues, the playoffs. And last year, the Smokies had two of the most incredible wins in the first round. They beat probably the best team in the league in the first round last year, and they played two of the most amazing games. And game two, I didn't do game three. I had I had a conflict, and I had to go take care of that other broadcasting job. But game two, Jonathan Perlaza made this incredible catch. Chase Strumpf hit, like a home run that put us ahead. It was like, just as a broadcaster, just like one of those pinch me type games. Yeah, the catch that Perlaza made to end the game, if he would have been playing right field for the Rangers, they would have beat the Cardinals in that World Series.
Wow. You
know what I'm talking about? I mean, this was the most epic catch ever, and to be on the call for that, and just to be like fired up and, doing the Jack Brickhouse, Harry Carey, broadcast that we do anyway, right? But just being able to kind of put it out there in those moments was a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that they're able to duplicate that.
Absolutely. And again, for our listeners, you can go and watch it on MILB TV as well. And if you go to the website, the Tennessee Smoky website, and you click on the team tab right there, it'll take you to the Smokies radio network, and it'll let you listen live. So just really get to know this team, because there's a lot of special players on here that are going to be making their way to Chicago. Mick, thank you so much for jumping on here. I know you have a new podcast. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your podcast and where they can find it?
Yeah, and you're going to be on there, so they need to come check out where we switch roles on the channel. But it's a YouTube channel. It's Cubs baseball channel on YouTube. And basically, we talk about the Cubs. We talk about any of the upcoming stars. We do some interviews, had guys like you on there, David Kaplan, Lawrence Holmes, my friends, Patrick Mooney. It's just been so fun to develop these relationships over the years. And then we get on there, and what people don't see is, we're talking minor league baseball here. You and I, we were chewing the fat for a half hour before this even started. And I'm like, hey, let's just do a show on my podcast and we'll just do this. So it's a Cubs baseball channel. And Crawly, I'm a big fan of you. I told you that. I don't always, I've got a lot going on right now, but anytime you need me, man, I'm always coming on. And I cannot wait to come drink some of your kegerator beer in your studio. Well, I keep calling it studio, in your man cave.
Hey, you have 100% invitation anytime, Mick. You let me know, and I'll definitely make sure we tear it up at Wrigley Field, my friend.
Yep. Can we sit in the bleachers together?
Anytime you want.
Is that cool? Are you there a lot?
I'm where the action is.
Okay.
I don't know. So wherever you want to sit, you tell me. We'll get a seat there and we'll have some fun.
We're gonna do a show, like a watch party type thing from Wrigleyville, and I want you to come and hang out with me when I do that. And then and I don't know when. I mean, like I said, I got like 15 different fires in the iron right now, but that's something that's in the works. And I mean, I just want to drink beer and talk Cubs and kind of have like a rotation of people that come through and hang with us. So you're invited.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend. And we'll show you a good time. Thank you so much, Mick Gillispie, and we'll talk to you soon.
Go Cubs.
This is the Fly the W670 podcast. It is season 2. It's episode 71. The Cubs disaster in the desert. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. In this segment, Crawly interviews Mick Gillispie, play-by-play man of the Smokies, to talk about Tennessee's playoff run, which begins Tuesday night. This is season 2, episode 71 of the Fly the W670 podcast. Cubs disaster in the desert. Boy, what a rough weekend that was. Crawly, great job with Mick Gillispie. Great guy. Love hearing him call Cubs games in the spring training games. Let's talk a little news and notes, and we've got a note from one of your favorite clubs, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Pelicans season ended on Friday night. They lost game 1 of the division series 2-1 in Charleston before heading to Pelican Park on Thursday. The Birds took game 2 of the series 3-0 behind some solid pitching by Drew Gray, Kevin Valdez, and Jose Romero. Pedro Ramirez homered, Andy Garriola, who was on the show, and Brian Calmer hit RBI doubles to force a game 3. But the Pelicans were blown out 18-4. I do want to thank the Pelicans for an amazing season and their kindness and hospitality and hosting me for a few games. I had an absolute blast down in Myrtle Beach, and I encourage all Cub fans, if you have a chance, head on out there and make a little vacation out of it like I did. It was a lot of fun.
Very nice. All right, let's stick with the minor leagues, talk a little bit more about Mick Gillespie's group down in Tennessee, the Smokies.
Yep, and so for the second season in a row, the Smokies are in the postseason. They will be taking on the Chattanooga Lookouts on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Game 1 will take place at Smokies Stadium. And Dustin, they have my favorite promotion, free beer night.
Free beer night. Explain that to me.
Oh yeah, if you listen to segment,
it is as simple as that. Free beer night.
Free beer night. So you have to buy a mason jar, and you get to keep refilling it until Chattanooga scores, and then the free beer is over.
So there's the catch.
There's the catch. So that'll be game 1. Game 2, and if necessary, game 3 will take place in Chattanooga Thursday and Friday. Top Cubs pitching prospect Cade Horton will take the ball in game 1. Walker Powell, who's had a good season with Tennessee, will take the mound on game 2. And then friend of the podcast, Cole Franklin, will be given the ball in game 3 if necessary. So good luck to the Smokies.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. How about some roster moves? Obviously, we talked about earlier in the segment, we talked about Marcus Stroman activated and used in back-to-back games.
Yeah, that was very surprising. He was one of the best pitchers on the team before getting pulled in the London game with a blister, and then he's just struggled ever since. He was put on the IL on August 2nd with right hip inflammation. The Cubs are expecting Stroh to come off the IL in mid-August, but after a bullpen session, he experienced discomfort on the right side and was diagnosed with right rib cartilage fracture. He was rehabbing in Arizona, but, this was definitely a surprise. Daniel Palencia was optioned to Iowa in the corresponding move, but Palencia never made it on the bus to Iowa as Michael Fulmer was put on the IL.
What the heck happened there?
Yep. Right.
That one surprised me more than Marcus Stroman.
Yeah. Fulmer went on the IL with that strain on August 26th. He was activated on September 11th. He pitched 0.2 innings that day against Colorado and then back on the IL, 15-day IL on Saturday. Palencia back to the Cubs in the corresponding move, so we didn't have to go far. Heimer Candelario and Adbert Alzolay are doing light drills during this weekend at Chase Field, so we'll see what happens there.
All right, let's get into it. Cubs, Pirates, let's preview this one. They're at Wrigley for 3 beginning on Tuesday night. Javier Assad throwing.
Yeah, we're taking a look here, and you can, it's when you look at the standings and you're playing against Pittsburgh, this is where we are right now in the Central. Milwaukee in first. They are just 7-3 out of, in their last 10. They are now 6.5 games above the Cubs. I mean, that is literally a pipe dream at this point. Cubs on a 5-game losing streak, 2-8 in their last 10. Cincy is just, they're 5-5. They're having a lot of injuries in their in their starting rotation. So they're 7 games back, only half a game behind the Cubs. And then Pittsburgh and St. Louis, we've talked about, are eliminated, and they're almost eliminated from the wild card. Let's talk about the wild card, Dustin, because that's where the craziness is happening. Mm-hmm. If you're looking here, Philadelphia up 3.5. They're 4-6, so they're struggling. But Arizona 6-4, but sweeping the Cubs, that gives them a 3-game streak. They are now the second place team in the wild card, 0.5 over the Cubs and Miami. Technically, though, Miami would be in and the Cubs would be out based on tiebreakers. And then Cincinnati's only half a game behind with San Francisco 2 out. So if you take a look at your playoff bracket, if the postseason started today, Dustin, it would be Arizona taking on Philly in Philadelphia, and it would be the Marlins taking on Milwaukee in Milwaukee. And this just kind of, for those of you watching on the Score YouTube channel, this is a graphic they had up on ESPN from Fangraphs. On opening day, the Cubs had 11% chance to make the playoff odds. July 20th, 6%. They got close to 90% almost a week and a half ago, and now it's a coin flip, 50-50. And the problem, Dustin, that you have here are these tiebreaker situations.
Yeah, you own none of them, basically.
Basically none of them. The Phillies went 5-1 against the Cubs. Diamondbacks went 6-1 against the Cubs. Marlins went 4-2 against the Cubs. The Reds 7-6 against the Cubs. They all own a tiebreaker. There's no game 163. The only team the Cubs hold the tiebreaker against is the Giants, who they took 5 out of 6 games from. So now we're stuck scoreboard watching. And if you look at the Diamondbacks, they have 2 against San Fran, 3 at the Yankees, 3 at the White Sox, and then finish at home versus Houston.
So should we go to 35th and Shields and boo the Diamondbacks?
Ah, God, right? And the Marlins have 3 against the Mets at home, 3 against Milwaukee at home. We got to become big Met
fans too. Yeah, we got to become big Met fans as well.
3 at the Mets and 3 at Pittsburgh. And then the Reds have 3 versus Minnesota, 3 versus Pittsburgh, 2 versus Cleveland, and 3 at St. Louis. I think they got the easiest schedule on the way out. But like I said, they're really beat up right now. And then the Giants have 2 at Arizona, 4 at the Dodgers, 3 at San Diego, and then 3 more at the Dodgers. So this is just absolute chaos. I mean, it's interesting, it's exciting, but
it's going to be an excruciating 2 weeks. How about this? So just doubling down on the playoff odds for a second. So on 9/11, the Cubs were minus 620 to make the playoffs over at Circus Sports. Today, 9/18, the Cubs are plus 115 to make the playoffs. That is a $700 swing. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
And we know the Pirates, they can just play nice and relaxed because they have nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. Nothing to lose.
That's the tough part about this type of year is these guys all can just play the spoilers. The Cubs didn't play the Pirates until June, which to me still is mind-blowing. I think they need to fix that. We'll talk about that when the season ends. But they played them twice in the span of a week. The Cubs swept the Buccos and that at home and then swept them at PNC a week later. After the All-Star break, the Cubs had a 4-game series. That's the last time the Cubs saw them. That was in Pittsburgh in August, and the Cubs took 3 of 4. So the Cubs have only lost 1 game to the Pirates all season. So, that's a good thing. Justin Steele went in game 1. He went 6 innings, gave up 2 runs. The Pirates used an opener, but Andre Jackson gave up only 2 runs in 6 innings, and the Cubs won this one 5-4. Ian Happ had a big 2-run RBI single in the 10th inning. That was the difference. Cubs lost the second game of the series 2-1. Hendricks pitched well, but the offense could do nothing against Mitch Kellner, who went 8 innings and gave up no runs and only 4 hits. Ian Happ hit a solo home run to prevent the shutoff in the 9th off closer David Bednar. And then game 3 was a wild one as Jordan Wicks made his debut. He pitched 5 innings of 1-run ball, but Hayden Wisniewski got crushed, giving up 5 runs in 1.2 innings. The Cubs offense put up 10 runs with Happ driving in 3, Bellinger 2, and Suzuki driving in 3. They won this one 10-6. They scored 10 runs the next day. Wouldn't that be nice, Dustin? 10 runs.
I would love to see. I would love to see that. They owned this huge run differential at one point, right? What was the other thing? They had 22 or 23 games of double-digit scoring. Just a little sprinkling of that over the next week, please. They
did that against Bailey Falter, so keep that in mind. They beat the Buccos 10-1, and Jeimer Candelario and Cody Bellinger combined for 8 games in that 4th one. So, they've been very successful, against the Pirates so far this season, and hopefully that continues this week at Wrigley.
All right, let's get it started. Game 1 Tuesday night, Javier Assad.
Yes, and I hope everyone comes out Tuesday night. I'm going to be there. It's Latino Heritage Night. They got a cool skull bobblehead that they're going to be special event ticket. And then our guy, Miguel Esparza, is going to be doing the 7th inning stretch.
Nice.
So it'll be a good time. And then hopefully Javier Assad will kind of have a better outing. He struggled against Colorado on 9/12. So he's had a little rest because of these off days. Last time he went 3.1 innings, gave up 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 4 walks though, Dustin. And that wasn't normal. 4 strikeouts. So that's why he didn't go along with, just giving up a lot of runs. Against Arizona, he on 9-7, he went 5.1 innings, gave up 7 hits, 3 runs. He took the loss on that one. And then against Cincinnati, he got no decision, 8 innings, gave up 7 hits and 0 runs. So just kind of a real victim of some bad luck on that one. And they're going to be going up against Bailey Falter, who I talked about earlier, gave up 10 runs to the Cubs. He's 2-8, Dustin, 4.40 ERA. But he's been pitching well as of late. He went 6 innings against Washington. I know they're not the best team, but he only gave up 1 earned run on 4 hits in that game. And then when you take a look at the other games that he's kind of done, he did not start. So he was taken out of the starter's role lately. So he pitched the 6 against Milwaukee. He went 3.2 innings and gave up no runs. And in another game, he didn't start against St. Louis. He went 3.2 innings and only gave up 1 run. So they were kind of using him in the opener role for much of September.
All right. So Cubs seem to, on paper anyway, seems like a game that would lean towards the Cubs, if you will. So how about game number 2? That's also going to be, these are all night games, right, Crawly?
All night games. So hopefully they don't make the baseball gods angry because they like games.
So J-Mo's going game 2.
7-10 right now. In his last start, he took the loss. He didn't pitch bad. He went 5 innings, gave up 7 hits, 3 earned runs against Colorado. Against Arizona, he got a no decision, pitched well. Again, went 6 innings pitch, gave up 1 hit, no earned runs. And then against Cincinnati, he got a no decision, 5.2 innings, gave up 7 hits, 5 earned runs, though. That was a rough one there. But he faces a tall task because he's going to be facing the ace of this staff in Mitch Keller. And when we talked about the last time that Mitch faced the Cubs, he went 8 innings of shutout baseball and only gave up 4 hits. The guy's 12-9 on a bad Buccos team. Against Washington, though, he did the same thing. He went 8 innings pitched and gave up 0 earned runs. Against Atlanta, he got bombed by that team. 5 innings pitched, gave up 12 hits, 8 earned runs. But against St. Louis, he went 6 innings pitched and gave up 1 earned run. So, look, against Atlanta, and I know they've been struggling as of late, but I mean, that's a tough team to play against. But if you look at all the starts since and before then, 1 earned run, gave him 0 earned run, 2 earned run, 2 earned runs. He does not give up a lot of earned runs. So, like I said, JMO's going to have to be up to the task, and there's no excuse for the offense because you're out of excuses at this point.
Yeah, no more excuses. 0 excuses. It is put up or shut up time. David Ross has been taking a ton of crap, and while there are questions, we've mentioned them in the Arizona series, at some point, the players have to pit. The players have to take responsibility, and the time for that, Crawly, is right now.
Well, hopefully game 3 will go their way. Justin Steele, 16-4. We talked about that bad outing. It was really 2 bad pitches that ended up costing him, that went for 2 3-run home runs. He gave up 6 runs on 7 hits. Just a tough hit on that one. And then against Arizona before that, he had a really good start. He went 7 innings, gave 1 earned run, but got the no decision. And then against San Francisco, he got the win going 8 innings, giving up only 2 hits, Dustin, and 0 earned run with 12 strikeouts, probably his best start of the season. So that was, that's what Justin wants to do that every time out, but clearly, nobody wants to get bombed when you're in the middle of the pennant race, and that's what happened to him last time out. They're going to be facing Johan Oviedo. The Cubs have seen him before. He's 8-14 with a 4.27 ERA. In his last game against the Yankees, he had a good start, 5 innings, 4 hits. He only gave up 1 earned run. But with the Pirates and their pitching staff, they've kind of just it's been kind of a goofy situation. Against Atlanta, he only went 3.2 innings, gave up 3 earned runs. They pulled him quick from that one. He started against St. Louis on 9-3, went 3.2 innings, gave up 5 runs on 4 hits. So he's a guy that you could easily, this again on paper looks like a guy you should beat. He's faced the Cubs twice. The first time he went 4 innings, gave up 4 earned runs. The second time he went 6 innings and gave up 2 earned runs. So he had 1 good start against the Cubs, 1 bad start against the Cubs this season.
All right, hot and not time. And when these guys that are on the not list are on the not list, it's no wonder the Cubs have been as bad as they've been lately.
Yep, Nico Horner's been looking really good as of late. When you look at Nico, he's 10 for his last 22. No home runs, 2 RBIs. He's slashing 455, 520, 455. Ian Happ has finally made the hot list after a long absence. 8 for his last 20 with a home run and an RBI. He's slashing 400, 478, 650. Again, I like him in that leadoff role. But when you get to the knots, Dustin, and this is where you're kind of saying, hey, we got a big problem here. Dansby Swanson is 4 for his last 22. He's slashing 182, 217, 364. And then Cody Bellinger in his last 7 games, 3 for his last 19 with 2 RBIs, but he's slashing 158, 261, 158. I mean, this is, again, Dustin, I'm not trying to harp on the whole David Ross thing, but part of being a manager is knowing when to give guys rest. And when Joe Madden was with the team, he used to do what he called American Legion ball, where he would tell everybody, hey, I don't care what's going on. Nobody's allowed into the clubhouse until 11 o'clock on a 1:20 start, or you're not coming in until 5 o'clock on a 7 o'clock start. Just rest, relax. And yeah, sometimes you got to take guys out and give them rest, Well,
unfortunately, though, this is not the time for that. This is not the time for that. There's no more. The rest or the days off. The time has passed. That time has come and gone. It didn't happen. There are no days off. This is definitely time for the old, dance with the one who brought you here. That's what time it is. Okay, that is what time it is right now. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Again, like I said, I was more disappointed that PCA did not get at least 1 start out in Arizona in that outfield. Wrigley's a smaller outfield, so I mean, would it be nice to see PCA? Yes, I'm going tomorrow, and I want to see his debut at Wrigley, or at least his first at bat.
Well, let's hope they're up. Let's hope they're up 5 in the 8th inning. He goes in and plays defense in the 8th and the 9th.
But that'll work.
That'll work just fine, right? All right, Crawly. Who are the names that Cubs fans need to be worried about as far as the Pirates go?
Well, there are two very familiar names, Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds. Everyone knows those names right there. Brian Hayes, 8 for his last 20 with 4 RBI, slashing 400, 409, 500. And Brian Reynolds is their real big power threat. He's 6 for his last 18 with 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. He's slashing 333, 455, 667. Two guys that are struggling, Jin Hwan Bae, who always seems to kind of give good at bats, but he's struggling lately. 3 for his last 19. He's slashing 158, 273, and 211. And then Connor Joe, who they got from Colorado, he's 1 for his last 15. He's slashing .067, .125, .067. So one other person to keep in mind, I know, Dustin, you always kind of look at this, Jack Sawinski.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about it. So he leads the Pirates with 25 home runs right now.
Absolutely. He's 6 for his last 21.
He's hit bunches at Wrigley.
And that's the thing. He loves to hit at Wrigley. They always have a large contingency coming out to cheer him. So even though he's kind of like in the middle of the pack, he's not hot, he's not cold, he's a guy to be very careful of at Wrigley Field.
Prediction time, Crawly. Here we go. What's happened in the next 3 nights over at Wrigley? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thank God Monday's an off night.
I'm going to go. This is a very unenthusiastic. Cubs take 2 out of 3. I think they're going to take game 1, and I think they're going to take game 3. I don't think Tyone beats Mitch Keller, but we'll see what happens.
Let's go. Sweep. Sweep the Buccos. Have them walk the plank right out of Wrigley Field. Cubs in a sweep. We're getting this done, Crawly.
All right. I'm hoping that you're carrying this team over the line here, Dustin. I'll be out there.
Pushing it over the line. Pushing it from my couch in the Western Burbs. All right, Crawly, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow the socials, Fly the W on Facebook. Also do it on Instagram. You can email us, flythew670gmail.com. And you can watch us, that's right, YouTube TV, by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel.
You know, Dustin, this is a time where we all got to kind of band together and just hope and pray that the Cubs do it, that we get to see some postseason baseball, and just get out to Wrigley. They're going to need some home field cooking. Let's all just chant, "Go Cubs!" Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!